Good morning, guys, or afternoon for some of you. All right. Today, as promised, I said I was going to talk to you about a healthy self-concept and living in the end of it. So I will start by saying how normal things have to be, by living in the end and how normal that must be to you. So I'm going to give you a few examples of what I mean. That way you will know, because when someone says you have to live from something as if, you really do. And you really have to understand and make it normal. It cannot appear as they have something and you don't. That's not living from the end, okay? So I'm going to talk to you about something I call a financial thermostat. I don't call it, it's you know, what I learned from its wealthy people. The financial thermostat is something that I learned from in educating myself on money and how things work and things like that. And one of the things they said was people have a set financial thermostat, okay? And that set financial thermostat is determining how you live. But you personally set that. So I'll give you an example. You know, you have someone like Dan Pena who lives in a castle in Scotland. That man, that's his normal. That became his normal. Now, he grew up in the barrios of California in a not so nice neighborhood, but his self-concept of billionaire was so strong, okay, that he had suits tailor-made that said the $50 billion man or something like that. That was the pinstripes. He lives in a castle in Scotland, and I think his servants are the ones that used to serve in the castle of England. That's his normal, okay? Then you have someone like Elon Musk, Bill Gates. That's their normal, okay? The millionaires, the billionaires, everyone has their own set normal, okay? Now, if you think along these terms, I'll give you another story, okay? I have a friend whom was living in North Carolina, and when I met her, I had never been over to her house, and she invited me over, and first time I ever set eyes on her house, it was beautifully decorated. It was absolutely amazing. It was like something out of a magazine. Now, her husband was a builder, so obviously they're going to have some really nice customizations, but this house was ridiculously beautiful to me. Like, I remember thinking, wow, this is nice. Every last detail of this house I was in awe of. I was really, really in awe of. And the truth is, I had never set foot in a house like this as a normal, okay? I'd never set foot in a house like this. It wasn't my normal, okay? But I remember thinking, I could get used to this. This is nice, right? A few weeks later, she says to me, it turns out we're moving. My husband's company's relocating. And I was devastated. The house. I was like, oh, the dream house. Like, oh, I'm so sorry. What are you going to do? You know, and I was so devastated by this house, and I'll never forget her reaction. She looked at me. Looks at me. It's just a house. That was her normal. Okay? Now, there's a reason I'm telling you this, okay? Because when you're working on your self-concept, okay, your self-concept has to be so solid, so freaking solid, okay, that 3D serves as your confirmation loop. So if you look outside in 3D and you're wondering, has my self-concept worked? Has my self-concept worked? You're not living in the end. This is not your normal. And no, it has not. Because if you're asking, has it worked? That means that it is still not normal. You still don't believe it. And no, 3D is not going to serve as your confirmation loop. Okay? I sincerely mean this. You want to look at 3D for clues to see how you're doing with your inner focus only. Okay? You're not looking for confirmation of did it work or anything like that. You're simply observing how your inner state animates out there. Okay? So let me explain how normal a really great self-concept is. Okay? A really great self-concept means that no matter who you date, okay, you will be accustomed to a certain level of treatment, of respect, of caring. It would be so normal, and this is my thing, this is why I'm saying, you could actually take for granted all this extra because it's your normal. I say this because women say, where are the men who used to open my doors and used to do this and that, and they would try and they would do that? I'm like, they ain't go anywhere. That's how they are. It's my normal. Do you understand? This must be your normal. It must be your normal. Your 3D partner must go out of their way, must show you appreciation, must court you, must treat you with respect, must refer to you as a certain way. It's a certain caliber of treatment, and it must be normal. It must be normal, because if it is not your normal, your self-concept is not complete. Your self-concept is complete when the 3D matches your state. That's when it's complete. That's why your state and the outer reality is instant. If you are not instant, then you are not actually embodying the state, are you? What you're trying to do is make it normal. When you're trying to create something, when you're making scenes, like I've showed you guys before, you make scenes and you enter them. That's how you do 3D, okay? So when you make scenes and you enter them, this is really important, okay? Those scenes have to feel normal, natural, every day to you. Otherwise, you are doing wishful thinking. It must be your normal thermostat. Okay? And I say this because I have yet to meet someone that doesn't treat me well. I've yet. Okay? In terms of my expectations, they're met. And if they're not, let's just say they're not, okay? I don't get involved. That's why I don't meet them. And I guess that's what I mean. They may be there, but we don't mesh. Okay? Because I'm so used to a certain caliber of treatment that when it falls less, I'll be like, honey, you got to move out the way. There are others that do so much better than you do. You got to step your game up, babe. Literally. And that sounds kind of shitty, but I'm telling you, if you want to court me, then treat me accordingly. The relationship is with me, okay? I know my worth, my value. I know what I bring to the table. Therefore, it's never in question. Never in question. The law of reverse effort does not work on me. Do you know why? The law of reverse effort works in dating on women when they question their worthiness. As soon as, especially in the law of reverse effort, when it is used on a woman, okay, and her self-concept is not 100% solid, she is going to drive herself mad wondering why this guy isn't treating her a certain way. She will drive herself mad trying to prove that she is worthy. She'll call, she'll text, she'll do all the work. That would never happen to someone with a solid self-concept. No, because someone with a solid self-concept mirrors efforts and matches efforts, and therefore when they recognize themselves, they fall in love. See how solid that is? They fall in love. Very simple. But normalizing a man or a woman treating you like a king or a queen needs to be where your head is at with the self-concept. That's what you're after. That is what you're after. You are after, okay, I want to tell you my norm, okay? I walk into a grocery store and this gentleman, beautiful gay man, was selling things in the front, and he looked at John, okay? John is very handsome, and looks at John and starts immediately trying to sell him something, right? And John looks at me, smiles, looks at him, and says, whatever the queen wants, she can have. I'm on a mission. And he went towards his aisle, right? And the man looks at me, he said, did you just hear what that man called you? And he was stunned, right? And I said, yes, that's the way it is. He's a king, I'm the queen. He's the god, I'm the goddess. All good, all right? But he was like, wow, honey, you better not let him go. This type of thing is normal. When you are working on your self-concept, that's how your 3D has to sound to know that your inner state has taken place. 3D is your friend, as in it is your mirror. It helps you see what you are cultivating inside and where you're living from. And when it fails to meet your expectations, it is not for you to get upset over what is not happening. It is for you to turn back inside of you and determine the next course of action. See how your state becomes that. When you understand self-concept that well, you will not have problems with relationships at all, okay? I have a young man here, okay, that I've known since I was 5 years old. I've never wanted to date him, okay? And every time he runs into me, he tries. Every single time. Years and years and years go by, you are not forgotten. If you know you are this type of woman or this type of man, you have to have value in yourself and know that value in order for it to be known by your mirror. Your 3D is going to show up as you are being. You have to understand what your being inside is animating the carcass outside. I say this with 100% conviction because it's the only world I know now, thanks to realizing the design. This is true of everyone. Your state inside animates out there. If you use out there for any other reason other than a look in the mirror to see what you're doing in here, you're doing it wrong. Your focus is within, not out there. Okay? You have to understand how normal this is. Your weakness should be not taking someone for granted, okay? But at least being able to recognize, wow, I didn't recognize that you were going out of your way because this is my normal. It also helps you in one thing. When someone falls shy of that, you're not interested because you know your worth. For example, I know whoever dates me, okay, I'll make successful out of the sky. Whatever they want to achieve, I'll make sure it happens. I'll just imagine it and they enter the state, okay? This is a very valuable skill. It's one that in my past relationship, he knows its value, okay? And that's what I'm trying to tell you guys. You have to know this value is worth something, because when you know how valuable you are, the rest of the world shows up as you are. That's a solid self-concept. That's a solid self-concept. The other thing you must not do is get upset when they show up as you are and you're not solid within. If you're not solid within, then they're not going to be solid. But you got to appreciate the messenger for showing you where you're falling short, instead of reproaching and thinking they're bad or less than or whatever. That's how solid, okay? You don't accept less, okay? If some Joe Blow off the street wants to take me on a date and he doesn't show up the way I expect him to, he's not getting a second date. There's no, oh, let me work with what I got here. A complete and total lack of need for their validation is an important part of the self-concept. It's not about being conceited. It's about knowing your worth. That must be normal. That must be normal to you. It must be 100% solidly ingrained in your soul. Now for me, it was ingrained in me because since I was 5 years old, my mom did this for me. And that makes me a lucky person. Yes, in that department. Heartache is not a normal thing for me. It never has. In fact, I'm known as the tourniquet. I don't do heartache. Okay? What I do is being loved, appreciated. Let me think. When I was younger, I had a guy, when I tried to break up with him because he asked me to marry him, he chased me around with a wedding gown. Like a wedding gown. Like chased me around. Okay? Perfectly normal. Happened in my world all the time. That's a solid self-concept. So if you're still struggling out there and you're getting enmeshed in what's happening out there, understand you're using the mirror incorrectly. That mirror is only to show you what you're doing inside and then point you in the direction so you can start correcting that self-concept and making it normal. When that's your normal, okay, then next, the people that you date all sound very similar, okay? Like, I'm so used to hearing, girl, I'm gonna marry you. Used to this. This is normal. Why? Because a woman or a man who knows their own value, has their own standards, has a great self-concept, doesn't have wounds anymore, has dealt with everything, has accepted everything they are, is totally in love with themselves, therefore is able to love another human being, is rare. That's why it's cherished. It's immediate. People want to put a ring on it. They move you in. They want to be with you. Okay? This is a solid self-concept. You must make that your normal. Just like Bill Gates made his financial status, that's his normal. That's where he lives from. If he were to live below that standard, it would not feel normal to him. That's what you all need to work on if you're working on your self-concept, okay? I have a great friend. Her name is Anna, okay? Her self-concept is so solid that everything I just described is exactly what her man sounds like. Exactly. That's her normal now. It's my normal. I recognize it. So when you're living in the end, please understand how important it is to make it normal. Now, I've said this before as a manifestation hack. When you're trying to manifest something, you want to normalize the memory and live from it in order for you to enter the state. If it doesn't feel normal, you're going to feel like you're lying to yourself, and then that will not manifest because you are acting as your own barrier. So for example, for me, I will never dream of playing in the NFL. Okay? I don't like football like that. I will never dream of it, right? So it's not my normal. So if I were to say suddenly, I'm going to imagine that I'm going to make a state where I play football suddenly, and I'm going to be the first female football player, and I'm going to make it to the NFL and all that stuff, right? That does not feel in any way normal. So I can write that story, but I can't embody it. Doesn't interest me, right? So chances are I'll create that story and someone else will live it. I can't embody that. That's not my self-concept. Okay? But if someone said to me, just anything. If someone said to me, I want to be treated like a goddess. I got that. I know what that's like, right? That's my normal. That's how you guys have to be. If you're looking for love, if you're looking for this, if you're looking for them to come find you, if you want 3D to show up as you are, then you need to realize what you are being and normalize a state that you're desiring being in order for 3D to show up as you are. It doesn't work the other way around. Everyone thinks when they're trying to manifest, especially 3D coaches, they'll tell you things like, say affirmations like, oh, he wants to be with me. He wants to be with me. Let me dream about he wants to be with me. She wants to be with me. She wants to be with me. You're trying to convince yourself of something like that is so much more work, because you are the only obstacle. You are the only one you have to convince. Do you need to do all that? No. Isn't it so much better to focus on your well-being, on your love, on your self-care, on your boundaries, on figuring out what wounds maybe that are playing out in your 3D world so that you can see how and why things are becoming that way, and you can start to fall in love and value that, so that now everywhere you go, people show up as you are, and you're loved and you're appreciated automatically, byproduct, not something you think about. Automatic byproducts. So when you're living in the end, please take this into consideration. Make this your normal. How do we make being a multimillionaire our normal? Great question. All right, I'll tell you Jan Pena's answer, okay? Millie, there's this man who grew up in the barrios, right? He's not particularly liked for his personality, okay? But the one thing he is 100% gung-ho on, self-concept, okay? Living in the end, acting as if, okay? So this man, the same one with the $50 billion, whatever, $50 million, I don't even remember what he did on his pinstripes, whatever, that was his normal. He'd never owned a Rolls Royce before, okay? But he wanted one. So he would go to the dealerships and drive them. He made the feel of the car his normal. He felt the car, okay? He now doesn't have to drive anymore, but he's owned hundreds of Rolls Royces since, okay? Other things that he did. And at night, he would write down his goals. So, for example, he knows he has 4 or 5 business meetings or whatever. So all of those he would write out, how successfully they went that day. So he would write that out at night, look at it in the morning, then he'd go attend his meeting, and it would go as planned. Okay? So he did things that were normal for that being. When you're trying to quantum leap, for example, you have to embody the state of that person. Whenever you're quantum leaping, okay, you're quantum leaping inside yourself, and every version of you that you desire already exists. What you're doing is going inside yourself and observing that person, and then you embody that person. You literally become their body and then mimic their actions, okay? Then you leave their body and you come back. But what you come back with is the vibration of embodying that state. Once you get familiar with that, you start vibing from there. That's how quantum leaps work, right? So in making a state, you'd have to start with being a multimillionaire. These people act and behave totally different. Correct me if I'm wrong, but when you feel wealth walk in the room, it doesn't matter how they're dressed, you feel it. Okay? This is a normal for them. They also, let me tell you, when it comes to money, they have a solid self-concept. They are financially secure. They focus on their freedom, on their security, on their worthiness, and their deservingness. If any of these vibrations are off, they would not be millionaires. That is a normal state within you. So what I'm saying is, when you start, like for me, if I wasn't a millionaire, I'm going to get a whole bunch of books, okay, and study these people until I understand what they think like, how they are and everything, and I start embodying that state. I start making that my normal. So then what happens is 3D shows up because that's my normal, and then 3D people show up to make it happen. So someone will say, hey, Sin, you want to write a book? Or, hey, Sin, there's this business opportunity. Or, hey, Sin, there's this and that. And all of a sudden, everyone is showing up to help me make my state normal. So it's embodying the things. You want to learn everything about these people. You want to really become them. But you have to walk your talk so that 3D shows up accordingly, because you are the source. And one of the biggest signs, if you are studying money, trying to understand how it works and trying to embody this state and studying this in order to make this normal, if you are doing this and people all of a sudden start showing up in your reality that are like this already, this is confirmation that you are already in your state. And now it is your turn to look at the 3D and learn from these people what they do differently and everything, and start doing those things. Because right now 3D is showing up as you are, so you can become what you're looking for. It's so important to understand that 3D is literally a mirror, but the real source of all of your power comes from outside of that mirror. Okay? It's coming from in here. When this state is your only focus and that becomes what you project, 3D shows up as you are, and they do everything in their power to help you out. Okay? So that would be a way that you start embodying the state. It's like, I want you to figure it like acting, okay? Think like most actors are actually empaths, because their ability to embody the character and become them is why they're paid so much money, right? So pretend that you're that actor and become them. You know, people sometimes, I have to make a video tonight on how to interact inside of a relationship, how to embody, how to possess the other body, to take their perception. And so I'm going to give my steps really soon tonight. I will explain that. I'm doing that for Anna and a few other couples that are looking to understand their relationships better. But my point is, in every instance, my ability to become the other person is the reason why the relationship goes so well. So what you're doing is becoming that character and making that your normal and living this way. What you don't understand, or if you haven't studied enough, or you don't understand how reality is broken down yet, I can tell you one thing. Your reality is broken down by something we call archetypes. These are characters. So this is the character that you're being. So for example, the character that I'm being, the archetypes that I'm being in order to exist here on earth, because I exist everywhere and I can go anywhere and I could be millions of years in the future. Okay, I can do all of that, no problem. But in order for me to exist here, I embody characters. That's what every human being on earth is doing. So my characters are the rebel and the teacher. Okay, the rebel and the teacher, these are the most common things for me. This is who I'm embodying right now, right? But there are all kinds of archetypes. There's heroes, there's villains, there's this and that. That's how all the characters in 3D is made in your brain. And then that looks solid and real outside, but the world is actually behind your eyes, and you use these little things to create and construct your reality. Okay? I don't know how well people know this. I mean, I'm behind the veil, so I know I construct my reality using these symbols, because these are symbols that my brain is accustomed to. They've been around since the beginning. We've always had a villain. We've always had a hero. We've had a rebel. We've had a teacher. We have all of these. These have been around, so they're easy to construct 3D elements this way. When you understand how your brain makes the illusion, it's a totally different, it's a game changer. For me, it's a game changer, because now I enter any state I wish by creating these elements like little building blocks. It's kind of like I'm designing my 3D, then I enter the image and I live from there. Okay? People that work with me as a coach, they'll tell you, Sin, since I started talking to you, I've noticed so many changes, like everything's happening, that kind of thing. Yes, because I'm guiding your inner focus, not your outer focus. And then you guys then look outside and you're like, you're not gonna believe what happened today. Yes, I will. Okay? It's an inner focus. So I hope that helps you guys. Think about this. Think about what's normal. Embody these women, embody these men that have this quality, because this is the state that gets you treated really well. It is what it is, you know. It's men will tell you this. Men and women actually will tell you this all the time. They are attracted to there's a certain je ne sais quoi about this person. I can't explain it, right? That feeling, you've all been on the receiving end of that. That's someone with a solid self-concept. So what you are feeling is their energy. Okay? And the truth is, if you don't, by the time you meet someone, it's your counterpart energy, and every single time it's your energy. Your job is to bridge the gap until there is no space between the two people and the two become one. That's love. Anything else is not love. It's what we call relationships, but that's not love. Love is the collapsing of two individuals becoming one body. And when I say this, I mean this sincerely, because I didn't know what love was until I realized that that's what happens to everybody that dates me. We share bodies. That's my normal now. It took me a long time to understand what love is, but now that I get it, truly, I see that that's become my normal. So that two bodies become one, so that when I eat something, he or she is affected and vice versa. Okay? So, work on these self-concept, ladies. Trust me. Do not worry about what's going on out there. It will show up at your front door as living proof immediately, but your focus needs to be here, because I want you to remember this. You are the projector. You are the projector. You are the lamp onto your feet. This is what you were told in the Bible. They're not lying. Your state in here determines everything you see out there, because what is going on is your brain is making images in the back of your skull, and then it's like looking in a mirror. If you notice, when you look inside of a mirror, what happens? You look in the mirror and you look forward but see behind you. Look forward but see behind you. This is always true. Okay, try to think of 3D as this great big giant universal mirror from which you can see yourself, and every single human being provides this mirror to you. Whether you like it or not, they are a mirror, a window into your quantum timeline. Okay, so understand this. When two people meet, I'm gonna give you an example, okay? It's by design. I want you guys to look at your eyes. Can you do it? Look at your eyes. The first thing you're gonna ask me for is, sure, give me a reflective surface. Where's the mirror? Right? You cannot look at your own eyes. You need a mirror to do that. That's exactly how reality works. You cannot know all that you are being, okay? Because you have a condensed perception of that in the moment, okay? There are experiences you have not had, experiences that you're no longer there at, or whatever, okay? So then this person comes along, okay? You have two people looking at each other in the mirror. Light, shadow. All right? Now, this space in between the two people, this space in between represents all of your experience. all of your living memories, all of your perceptions, all of your wounds, all of your biases, all of your hatreds, all of your whatever. It represents all of your experiences. If you've been hurt as a child because your parents left you, abandoned you, whatever, that's in there, in this experience. Okay? You do not understand that this person over here is loving you by showing you what's in there, what's in the space between. It is your job to accept everything in the space between so that you recognize yourself in the moment. This collapses the time-space continuum and two people become one because you realize the light and the shadow are the same being. They are the same being. One must reflect what the other is doing so you can look into your own eyes. I hope you like that example because it's true. It's true of every human being on earth. We are quantumly entangled. This is also covered in Corinthians and Romans. Quantumly entangled. What one does to one, we affect the universe and the galaxy millions and thousands and millions and hundreds of billions of light years away. We are that powerful. But we are all one thing. What we do to one affects the other. All right? You have to have a solid self-concept in order for this to match this. When that happens, you will see. That's where your power is. It's not out there. When you realize that you make the carcass move, you have found the kingdom of heaven. Because the only thing on display, the universal experience that we all have, okay, is all of your living memories jumbled up into different patterns, and that is the only thing you are ever seeing. I know when you fall in love, you think you're falling in love with something out there. You're falling in love with your own reflection. You're falling in love with the potential of your own relationship. That is what you are seeing. That's why when you understand who you are, you need nothing. Because everything comes to you. All things return to God. When you know this, like you know this, like you know this, like you know this, you have zero fear. Fear does not belong in a solid self-concept. Okay? I'm going to give you one last example. I'm going to leave names out, but I'm going to tell you. Give you a side story. It's the last story I'm going to leave you with. Okay? So I can show you the difference between a solid self-concept and what's not. Let's say that you have a gentleman who has limited time to date. And he's finally planning a romantic weekend. He has limited time. Maybe he's got other obligations or whatever. But so finally he has a weekend to himself and he wants to enjoy it. He invites his lady friend over. They have a great time. But unfortunately, she has to work and he doesn't. So they're planning on spending the whole weekend together. So after work, she'll come over, right? So this is fun. I'm giving, with his permission, hopefully, I'm using this example. She goes to work, and he happens to fall asleep. They had a great evening. Had a great evening. He happens to fall asleep. All right. She's at work and doesn't hear from him. Doesn't respond to his text right away. It's not normal. He's asleep. Right? All right. In that 2-hour-long time, someone with a not so solid concept, okay, will have had a great conversation with themselves, broken up with that person 2 or 3 times. All of their insecurities are on display. They will convince the other person not to date them. Okay? Which is exactly what happened. So when he wakes up, he looks at this. He sees all of these, you broke up with me? I wasn't even in the conversation. What kind of crazy bullshit? What the She broke what? What is he going to do next? If he's smart because he has a solid self-concept, he's gonna break the rest of the weekend and be like, yo, I'm busy. Why? Because that type of insecurity is not sexy. Someone with a solid self-concept isn't worried about where he is, what he's doing, or anything like that. If she hasn't heard from him in 2 hours, she's not a trip. She knew she was meeting him afterwards. Does that make sense to you? To have this whole, but how many women do it? How many women do it? That law of reverse effort is a bitch, isn't it? It's a bitch to someone who doesn't understand their worth because they will go out of their way to try and prove their worth to someone else. That ain't how it works. That was a turnoff. It was a huge turnoff. He did not complete the rest of his weekend. She was turned off and repelled by that behavior, okay? But here's what happens, okay, from her perspective, because I can see both sides, okay? What happens from her perspective is she's going to be like, this asshole used me. That's her wounded nature showing up. She's not taking responsibility for her insecurity or for the way that she convinced him not to see her. She's not taking responsibility for that. No, she would rather wear the victim archetype and say, he used me. And that would justify the fact that she convinced him not to date her. She can't see that side. That's not a solid self-concept. A solid self-concept wouldn't trip, would know that she wore him out, if you catch my drift, and wouldn't be worried about it unless, 6 or 7 o'clock rolls around or something like that, okay? But I wouldn't be expecting that, okay? And I know I would get it. Of course I would get the answer back. Of course I would. Do you see how this sounds? Of course I'm going to be texted back. Of course I'm going to be responded to. Of course. Do you see? So there's no doubt here. Therefore, there's no insecurity. So you're treated accordingly. So in that scenario, the one with the solid self-concept would have had a great weekend. Probably started a relationship with a fabulous guy. So I don't know if people point these things out, but your wounds are determining your behavior. And if you don't love yourself enough to make that self-concept something that is healed, you will not understand why we repel people instead of draw them in. Now, I hope this tea is good for y'all. I hope I gave you something to think about. Okay? It's not criticism. I want to make sure people know that. This is, let me show you how someone with a solid self-concept sees outside, so that when you have completed this in yourself, you recognize what you're seeing. But the focus is always here. When people say love yourself, yourself is a hard thing to define. Yourself is you, but it's also, sorry guys, yourself is you, but it is also everything you're projecting outside of you. The whole thing, okay? But it's an order of operations. You first, then them. Then you treat them as you would treat yourself. Now you're in balance. But that order of operations is key. Because when you don't place yourself first, the problem with that is they place you second. And you gave them permission. All right? So, I hope that helps. I didn't mean for this lecture to be too long. but normalize your self-concept. Make sure you keep it a priority. And remember, 3D will conform to what you are being. Do not question it when it does. Keep the state normal, and this stabilizes the field, so it allows you to see how 3D appears as you are. I need everyone to switch their focus in here so that they can recognize what they are being is responsible for what's out there. You start focusing here, then the inverse happens. All things return to the source. And then it'll be normal for the attentive person to show up. It'll be normal for him to say, I love you. It'll be normal for her to say, you're awesome. Yeah. You have to, it must be cultivated here. And then it shows up out there. Okay? Tonight, guys, hopefully if I don't get run over by clients, that happened to me yesterday, tonight, I will try to do the talk on if you're in a relationship and how to embody their perspective, because, you know, getting the guy or the gal is important. Keeping the guy or the gal is even more important. So, looking forward to seeing you guys tonight, and I hope you have a great lunch, and I love you. Bye-bye.